Hey y'all, it's y'all favorite cozy girl, Chi the Reality Queen, and I am back again with another episode of Robe Chronicles. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Real Housewives of Potomac, the reunion part 2. And honestly, can I just start off by saying I am so glad that we are almost done. I know y'all thought I was going to say Juan Dixon is not here right now, but I am. I'm just like the discourse on Twitter. It's just a lot of back and forth. And I'm not saying I haven't found myself caught up in it because I have been, but I just think it's getting to be too much. And honestly, like I'm trying to recurate my timeline so I just don't have to see any more Real Housewives talk because it's just getting to be too much. Anyways, this episode starts off with, Mia explaining what Wendy said at the end of the last episode about Ink thinking that Jeremiah was his kid, and she tries to explain the that she went through that little IUI thing, and then like shortly after, her and Ink hooked up, but she knows her body, so she knows that Gordon is the father, and I'm just like, okay, Mia. Like honestly, I just we don't even know if that's true because Mia lies so much, right? Like we're gonna take it for what it is, but I don't even know. Like when Mia talks, I'm just kind of like, could be true, could not be true, right? Like we don't really know. But Karen pretty much like interrupts the entire conversation, saying that like, kids are off limits, and one day Jeremiah is gonna actually watch this, and we shouldn't be having this conversation for him to find this out like later on watching TV. And she's so right. Like, why Jeremiah is so young, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know what's going on. And now we're talking about his paternity on television. And I know Wendy brought it up in this setting, but they already had brought it up like on the last episode. And I just kind of feel like, I guess there's no low Mia won't go. Like her kids can clearly be used as props for her storyline. And that's a little much for me. I still like Mia, but it's a little much for me. Um, then I think Andy asks Karen if Ink is the rapper that she heard that Mia was with. And Karen was like, yeah, that's what I heard. She's like, oh, well, he's not a rapper. He's a radio DJ, whatever. And um, then Giselle asked Mia, like, do you think G, that you're with G, or G is angry about like the finances or something like that? And like that's why she doesn't want to be with him anymore, and that's why she's with Ink, because like Ink is more stable now. And Mia's like, no, that's not it, and this and all that. But it's kind of like, honestly, Mia, no one knows anything what you say for sure. Basically, like I was saying, like you say stuff, but we don't know what is true and what is not. So when you say stuff, everybody got to take it kind of with a grain of salt, because who knows? Then Andy brings up, like, okay, Candace, Wendy, with your husbands being friends with G, like, did they know anything? And like, Candace and Wendy start kind of laughing. And, you know, Mia's like, when this happened, every single woman on this couch reached out to me except for them two. When this happened to you, ma'am, nobody told you to cheat on your husband for him to leave you. Now, are there other portions of that relationship that I think maybe we all didn't know about? Honestly, I don't know, right? We don't know what's true. We saw stuff play out in this season, right? That it was like, oh, okay, well, if that's true, G might be a little more controlling or problematic than I think we originally thought. But it's like, girl, and Candace and Wendy tried to cover for themselves. Wendy more so than Candace. Candace, like, you're right, I could have reached out. She says she didn't because all the things that G was saying, she just felt really kind of embarrassed by it and decided to keep out. And Andy kind of called her out, like, isn't keeping out sending like a message saying, hey, I hope everything's okay? And that's true. Like I said, Candace says it's true. I could have hit her up. I just didn't. Wendy, on the other hand, kind of took the approach of, when we ended the last season, girl, you had assaulted me. We were not cool. So when this came out, it could have been my moment to get my lick back on you. But, she said, Gordon called Mia everything but a child of God. She said, and she's like, and I chose to just honor you and respect you by not blasting your information. And honestly, that's a pretty good person, because I don't think that any of the women on that couch would have done that with the information that Wendy got. Like, I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. When they hear stuff, see stuff in the blogs, when they heard about Karen, none of them texted her, called her. They confronted her on the shirt wearing shirts. They confronted her on the show wearing shirts about, raised tax issue. Like, so for them to now act and expect for Wendy to do something that none of them would have actually ever done, I don't know. I see the bias, right? I see it. It's there, but I think, as someone who is mostly cordial with people, I probably would have texted Wendy. I don't know if I would have texted her to be cordial or to be nosy, because nosiness probably would have went up like, hey girl, is everything okay? I saw XYZ. You know what I mean? And Gordon hit up Eddie and was like, XYZ, So I might have hit her up out of nosiness, but concern, not sure I would have been too concerned about someone who assaulted me. Just being honest. Even if, like, we weren't in a terrible space, but I'd have been like, that's what your ass gets. I'm sorry, I'm kind of petty, but I would have absolutely hit up me. I think I can say that with 100% certainty. Now, would it have been for me just being nosy more so than concerned? Possibly, but I would have done it. And I think Wendy could have done it as well. Um, then they asked about Ink, and Mia basically says, like, it's funny enough because Ink's favorite is Wendy. And Wendy's like, oh, never mind, I changed my tune. And everybody was it's so funny because it's a random little, like, tidbit, jokey joke. And you can see the hate on some of the other people's faces. Like, why are you hating? Who is Ink? Ink is just Mia's new man that no one apparently has met. Y'all so close with Mia, but y'all ain't met Ink? I don't know. Seems a little strange. And she all over with him. She paraded him all over the place, took him to watch What Happens Live. But her closest girls, how y'all always posting their picture online, talking about real friends, real friends, real friends, really? But she can't let them meet Ink. Ashley's the only person that has kind of spoken to him on FaceTime because she was in her house. Like, I don't know. The story is a little funny. Okay. Um, then they ask Mia about where she lives. And she's like, oh, I live in DC in the penthouse, blah, 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 all this stuff. And here comes Giselle. And I'm like, this is who y'all think is her friend. She starts asking, I mean, not Giselle, Robin starts asking her, like, well, when we heard you was in Atlanta and now you're in DC and this and that, whoop de whoop. And she's like, oh, I'm like global. This is why no one believes Mia when she speaks. She can't give a straight answer. I have a place and pay rent in DC. I fly to Atlanta and stay with my man. If that's the case, I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying, like, she don't give straight answers like that. People are like, oh, she's so transparent, but her answers aren't like that. They're very kind of roundabout. Then they try to move to Giselle and Jason, and I'm like, they like show a little flashback of Giselle's season, and it's like, no one cares for this fake relationship. Giselle has not had a real relationship on that show since she showed up. She fakes them. She pays whoever she got to pay to come, or maybe not pays them, but tells them, hey, if you come on the show, maybe you'll be relevant for a week or two. Sherman, all these people that she, just randomly hooked up with. It's like, girl, you might be beautiful, but you're clearly not likable. And I'm convinced of that. She is a very beautiful, unlikable person because how is it that she kind of got to, unless, which is also a possibility, she don't want her relationships for real on the show. So she don't show the real people she's with, which kind of makes it much worse, right? Like, why are you here if we can't see that part of your life? I don't know, which is weird to me. Then, you know, Candace, I mean, at the end of that clip, they show, I guess, Wendy talking about how at the end of like the little recap of Giselle's season, they kind of show Wendy talking about how, you know, Giselle never said it. She was too busy calling her mom evil while she was in the hospital. Instead of, so she doesn't really care to well wish Giselle's father while he's in the hospital. And so as soon as the clip ends, Giselle's like, I never did that. That did not happen. And it's crazy because the type of language that Giselle uses when denying stuff is like absolute. When in reality, everything she's denying, she's done. Maybe it wasn't exactly like, and Wendy cleared it up. She goes, you were having a conversation in which you said you called Jamal and you talked about it, and Jamal said that was evil, and she was evil. And I think that's interesting because I never said that. That didn't happen. And people let her get away with that. Even when, and here's the thing, instead of production rolling the clip back because it was a clip from the season, we all know you have it, they didn't. They just let Giselle say she never said that and moved right along. And that is why people are getting tired of the Real Housewives of Potomac. Because when everybody else is being held accountable, except for her, it's tiring. It's like, okay, like you guys have colluded to make sure that she doesn't look bad. Like, honestly, just stop. And if you want a show of just her, then get rid of everybody else and just leave her. It won't be very successful, but you could do it. It's possible. um then but she did call her mom evil. Maybe she didn't know she was in the hospital. Wendy didn't talk about Giselle's father. She just doesn't like Giselle. So why does she have to reach out to someone just because her father is in the hospital? And at the time, she did not know the extent of her father's sickness. Like, yes, now the dad has passed, but I mean, that's not Wendy's issue. I'm not saying it's not sad, but it's not Wendy's issue. Then they start talking about Giselle's father and everything, and Candace starts, tearing up. And Andy was like, I just want to know, why are you like crying? And the funny thing is, it is so hard for them because Mia's like, she cries every time the wind blows, child. And Giselle's like, oh, she cries for everything, even if it's not her thing to cry about. The problem is Giselle doesn't care about people, anyone at all, barely herself. So because she does not care, she can't even comprehend that someone could see someone's father passing and find it to be devastating. I don't have to like you to know that. And most people, because they're empathetic, they can maybe even place themselves in your shoes, and maybe that even brings out the emotion of like, whoa, like life is short, things happen, people die. It becomes a very emotional thing, right? Not everybody is like that, but we already know that Candace is a very sensitive person. And it's crazy because everybody tries to then relate that and say, well, Giselle, you could see that, Candace has to care a little bit. And Giselle just sat there looking like a freaking duck. Like, girl, that is why your life is what it is. You're miserable and evil. Like, maybe you're on the TV show, maybe all that, but you are not a good person. You can't even look at somebody and say, wow, this person really it has concern for my family. Maybe they didn't talk to me, but it's there. Maybe we're not on good terms, so they didn't talk to me, but it's there. Giselle would never. She would never. Now, do I think that Robin would potentially text Candace if something happened to her family? Yes, because Robin was actually close with Candace's mom. So I think that even Robin could get to the point where she would be like, whatever beef we had, something happened to your family, let me hit you up. I don't see that for Giselle at all. I don't see her caring. I think she'd probably be like, good. And that's the crazy part. To act like you're not evil and you're not a bad person when you can't even think about other people. Like, I really want to know how she behaved as a first lady. And if any of you guys went to her church and know, like, I need to know. I personally have a very big problem with first ladies of churches. I don't tend to like them. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I'm sure there's good ones. I'm sure there's great ones. But all the ones I've ever met or interacted with have been downright nasty human beings. And I feel like Giselle just falls into that category. There's something elitist about that position, and those people have a feeling about how they are and where they line up in life. And there's just a behavior that they have, and it's nasty. And so I don't actually fault Giselle because I think a lot of them are like that. And I think she just played this role. And after getting played so much and cheated on, and her husband or ex husband had 8, 10, 15 kids on her, whatever it was, she's jaded. And instead of saying, hey, it's been 12, 13 years, she can't, like, it hasn't, that hurt. She hasn't let it go yet. She hasn't let it go yet. She was in the church and didn't learn a single lesson. She has not let it go. So I really do wish that one day she reflects on her behavior and is like, wow, I was really horrible to people and I could have been better. But I don't think it's going to happen. But I think it would, because you would think that in the passing of your father, which is so tragic, right? Something like that, that would be the moment that you're like, wow, life is short. Let me forgive people. Let me do that. So if that's not what she did when that happened, I can't see it happening ever, right? Um, then they talk about Giselle's children and how, he basically asked Karen, like, why didn't you defend, the looks that Wendy and Candace were making about Giselle's daughter? And Karen was like, I don't control any of these people. And she's right. She don't. Like, no one at that table is a child. Everybody is grown. So everybody can do what they want, even if you don't agree with it. I have friends who do things I do not agree with. And I'd be like, well, you know what? You're an adult. I may not agree with it, but you're an adult and I'm not going to reprimand you because who am I? You know what I mean? And basically, what we then find out is both Candace and Wendy congratulated Giselle about her daughter going to school. Candace said congratulations, and we heard it in the clip. Thank God for the person who pulled the receipt. And Wendy says she talked about, like, oh, is she going to become an AKA and blah, blah, blah. And Giselle's like, that never happened. That never happened. That never happened. Okay, ma'am, first of all, we already saw Candace's congratulations on camera. So you can't say that never happened when we heard it. That's number one. And the fact that immediately Andy was like, oh, they can't find the clip. Did they try? Or are they just saying that because there's the narrative that they want to paint that Wendy and Candace are such bad people? It's funny because they try to paint that narrative, but all that ends up happening is Giselle looks like a horrible person. And they edit her to be the best. That's the crazy part. They have edited Giselle to look good and she still looks horrible. That's scary. I can't even imagine how much worse she is that we don't even get to see because they edit her to look really good. Um, and then they move on to, then they're talking and, like, Candace is like, they're like, do you have an apology or whatever? And Candace is like, well, I'm just so sorry that Giselle continues to weaponize her children. And that's really what she does because obviously Karen is like, children are off limits. Everybody feels that way. So when she says stuff like, oh, it's my daughter, it's this, it's that, you are supposed to automatically feel that sympathy for whatever the situation is. First of all, let's discuss how editing works. I assume they made those faces while that conversation is happening. But the truth of the matter is, because the actual taping did not happen in a manner where I could see Giselle's mouth moving and Wendy and Candace's face at the same time, I have learned that you cannot believe that those things actually coincided. You don't even know if those things were happening at the same time because production does a lot of editing and splicing stuff together to make stuff look like their reactions to certain things when they may not have even been the reaction to what was being said. So I don't know. I just think, like I said, production is working overtime to make Wendy and Candace look bad. Um, then Nneka asked Giselle, because, no one's talking to Nneka, she got to insert herself. Nneka asked Giselle if she's seeing other men. And because they're talking about her and Jason's relationship and how Jason obviously is not with Giselle. I mean, they don't say it so clearly. Andy does bring up that he has another girl and, whatever. And she's like, oh, Jason called me. Yeah, Jason, of course Jason called you. He called you to say, girl, I know we had an agreement to fake this relationship, but my girl is not happy about it. So it's up. I'm sure that's how that conversation went. It was very much so, sorry, girl, it's out. And so Nneka asked her, like, you know, do you have another man? Are you messing with other people? And Wendy's like, Mia answers for her. Is like, yes, she is. It's just, I was like, stop trying to put my business. There's no business to put out there. It's a lie. You ain't got a man. And Mia's like, oh, is he an athlete? Mia, the way you lie, and now you're trying to put them lies on Giselle. I mean, Giselle lied, but come on now, Mia, that's your brand of lying. That is your brand of lying. Giselle does not have another man because the streets is too small for Giselle to have a man and be out in them streets and nobody knows. Unless you're telling me Giselle only hangs out with her man in her house, which I have a hard time believing, that she only hangs out with her man in her house. The only dates we do are in our house or in your house. I'm not buying it. Someone would have gotten a picture of Giselle and posted it because the streets is nosy. Um, then Candace talks about her breast lump and, about it shrinking and it being a blessing. Um, she was, obviously crying about it because, that's Candace. Am I tired of Candace's tears? 100%. I think Candace cries too much. So I'm not on like, I'm not against Giselle and me and everybody when they talk about Candace crying too much. I agree. But what I've learned is some people are more sensitive than others, and you have to just let them be who they are and accept them. And I like Candace, and I've accepted her for that characteristic. Um, then they ask her about her legal issue with Michael and how basically the case was dismissed. And, she really has no comment. She says that her mom did think that Ashley was in the know about it and was hoping that, you know, that Michael would win so she could benefit from it. But Candace doesn't believe that. And, see, that's where I see that Candace is actually pretty forgiving. I know people are like, why does Candace keep giving Ashley a chance? Is because maybe she doesn't think Ashley is that bad. And I don't know. I think Ashley is a lot. But I do notice that Ashley is, besides, she's messy, but I feel like Ashley is quite forgiving and she's more willing to work with everybody, not like Giselle. And like I said, Robin has turned into a mini Giselle. I mean, she's always been Giselle's like back or whatever. Like she does whatever she does. But now she's trying to be more like, oh, and I know it is a direct relation to Giselle telling her, you can't forgive this girl. You can't do that, And Robin, because she doesn't have a mind for her own, she like does stuff in that manner. But I think Ashley, yes, Ashley hangs out with them and, deals with them. But I think she does have a mind of her own. And if she wants to get along with Wendy or, you know, Candace, she will. So I think that's why Candace gives her the grace that she does. Um, Then Candace starts to break down the timeline of everything that happened with Robin. And she says, like, after the last reunion, she had like thought they were cool. Like, okay, everything finished. We're good. She hit up Robin, or she like commented on her Instagram post. And Robin was like, oh, you probably think this makes me look more white adjacent or something like that. And it's like, okay, angry, but who knew? Uh, and she doesn't, and that was it. And she was like, okay, are you mad at me? No response. Then, after the information comes out, Candace then texts her again and said, hey, despite everything we're going through, you know, I'm sorry that this is happening to you and your family. Once again, no response. So then is when Candace, who clearly should not have done this, because, if someone's your friend, you give them the grace to get over whatever you need to get over. But Candace clearly is, if someone who's very emotional, that just doesn't work in the crying way. It works in the anger way. So she got really upset. And so she started feeling like, okay, well, maybe this girl is who, I might have thought she was. And she goes off and says everything she says on Twitter and whatever, whatever. Um, and then again, I think that's wrong because you shouldn't do that to your friend or someone you think is your friend. I actually think if it was me, I would have called the person. I don't know if Candace did. She didn't say that she did. So I think, like I said, in this instance, she was wrong. She shouldn't have started going off just because she didn't respond to her. I think she should have given her a little bit more grace than that. Um, but if you are in your head and think somebody's plotting, I can see how you can get there. Then Robin, in her response, starts crying or tearing up, talking about how the colorism conversation is so hard for her. Is it very hard for you? Being accused or believing someone believing that you could be benefiting from colorism as a woman who sometimes when I see your pictures am convinced is a white woman. I'm sorry. Y'all can say what y'all want, but there have been many instances that I have seen Robin and the picture, she might have had like a platinum blonde or whatever, and I saw the picture and before I cleaned my eyes, I thought it was a white woman. So for Robin to be so shocked, I don't know. It's a little like, really, girl. Um, and Candace says, like, hey, race has always been constant in my family, and we have to talk about it. And see, that's where the people having these colorism conversations are missing, right? Candace doesn't have the choice to say race is an uncomfortable conversation. Colorism is an uncomfortable conversation. She was born and raised a brown skinned girl. There's no avoiding that conversation. People are going to make fun of you for that. People are going to talk about you because of that. People are going to make commentary because of that. And that's within your own community. So you really don't get the grace that someone like Robin gets to just say, oh, these are conversations I don't want to have. You don't get that grace. When you look like me, when you look like Candace, you don't get that grace because the way you present to the world, the way you look when the world sees you, is how they see you. You're brown, you're dark, you're this. You don't get the grace to say, I don't want to have that conversation because it's uncomfortable. Because people will have it for you, around you, in front of you. And it's not really fair, but you have to have it. And even at a young age. So I've noticed so many people are making these comments and having all these thoughts and they don't look like Candace. They look like Robin. It's okay. And it's funny because everybody's like, well, Candace, if you called her a colorist, Wendy and Candace were like, no, she didn't. That was the one thing she didn't say. She said she was very clear in saying she doesn't believe any of her castmates are colorists. And the truth is, I don't know if they are or they aren't, right? Because it's us fans really who push the discourse. But it's like, I think they have benefited from it. Absolutely. I think they absolutely benefit from colorism. Every single one of those women on the stage, with the exception of Candace and Wendy. They're all fairer skinned and they benefit from colorism. They do. You don't have to like it. You don't have to want to talk about it, but that doesn't mean you haven't enjoyed the pleasures of colorism, right? And, Karen is like, there's no better group of women to have this conversation. And Wendy shuts her down real quick, like, no, this group doesn't have the range. They don't have the range. And they don't have the range because they're all benefiters of colorism, right? It's hard to have that conversation when you don't want to believe it's true because you haven't experienced it. You know what I mean? So I think it's just interesting to me, um that they feel like, oh, Candace is this girl that keeps trying to push it. She didn't push it. She just was able to peep it, and the Twitterverse and maybe other places online were calling it out. And I think that what we're missing here is, like, in the conversations that are happening, is so many people want to have an opinion, and I get it. Twitter is a place that you can wake up, create an account, and have an opinion. You could be 12, you could be 10, you could be 9, you could be 60. You could be black, you could be white, and you can have an opinion on any topic because it's your Twitter and you could tweet it. And then don't let you have a lot of followers because people will amplify that thought no matter how stupid it is. And I think that's really where this colorism conversation really is, like, pissing me off, is because a lot of people are talking about colorism like, oh, Wendy's mom is bleaching. Let's talk about that colorism. That that's not This is why she said folks don't have the range. If you don't understand that there are harmful effects of colorism, which result in people modifying or attempting to modify their skin tone because they have been told that their skin tone is less than, then you can't even begin to have this conversation because you don't understand it. You don't understand it. And if you don't understand it, leave it alone. You know what? Hey, I didn't know what colorism was. I have never experienced colorism. It is interesting that Candace and Wendy believe that colorist things are happening. Whatever. Leave it very basic. Don't start trying to get into the intricacies of a topic you do not understand, have never experienced, and have no background in. And a lot of y'all on Twitter do not have the range. Okay? So leave it alone. It's okay. Leave it alone. It's not for you to discuss. You don't have to discuss it. We don't have to discuss it. Let's let it go. It's over. Um, then they call for a break because the men are getting ready to come out. And we always love when the men come out. um, what's it called? They go to NECA and she's like getting ready with her husband, Ike. And it's so funny because people are like, oh, Ike is now like the most handsome house husband, like, we've had in a while. And I see y'all have bad taste. Let me tell you, no, Ike is just an Igbo boy, you know? Leave him. He's just maybe because y'all don't see Nigerians like that. He be looking like every Nigerian I ever seen. He's okay. He's not ugly, but come on now. And so, anyways, Nick is talking to him, and he was like, when people are talking, you have to like let them let you get your point. I don't want to have to over talk for you. And Nick is like, you're here to support me. And if you're not planning to do that, then you could go back to wherever Juan Dixon was. Oh, girl, what? Look at you trying to shade Juan Dixon now. Look at you trying to have a hot mic moment. Baby, the Green Eyed Bandits, they're not going to let that pass. If you think they're going to let that pass, let's see how it goes if you're called back for a new season. It's just, to me, I'm like, that was weird. I thought Robin was your girl. Honestly, it's funny because they really are only showing NECA in these little clips because she don't really have a moment. Even when they show the like clips, and I'm hoping that she has more of a talking piece come part 3, but even when they show the little clips of like what's going on next, they never show her talking, which just goes to show, like, why would you bring someone like that back? She has no purpose. Sorry. Then the men come out. They ask Chris about where he's been, and he's like, well, if I'm not wanted, I'm not going to come. And Andy's like, well, Candace doesn't want you. And she was like, no, I want him around. He's just not going to come around into a place where people are, trying to destroy him and his name, which rightfully so. Then they ask Chris about the girl who came out and said, that she was whatever, and then she retracted her story or whatever. And Chris was like, I don't know that girl. Like, it was weird, whatever. And here comes Robin Dixon, of all people, like of all the people on that stage. I don't care if Ashley had asked, but for Robin Dixon to come and be like, so the screenshots were fake? The screenshots were fake? Baby, were the receipts fake? Was the fact that Juan was sleeping with that girl from Canada fake? How dare you try to question another man when you can't even question Juan? You be stuttering, shimmering, and shaking, throwing up, trying to talk to Juan, but you want to be big, bad, and bold when you questioning Chris? Girl, you're embarrassing yourself. Shut up. You're embarrassing yourself. Why would you even think that that was a good thing to do? That was terrible. And, Chris was like, I have never met that girl. And she's like, was this? And he's like, I have never met that girl. And she's like, well, just because you haven't met her doesn't mean y'all weren't messaging back and forth. Girl, the girl can't even keep her story straight. He met with her, they were sleeping, she had an abortion together, then she made it all up, then she came back and said, why would you even believe a story like that? And that's the funny thing. They want everybody to take their word and believe what they say, but they be going, her and Giselle be taking what the blogs say and what articles say to heart and be questioning and harassing people over stuff like that. This is not the first time they've done that, you know? And so I think it's crazy that she's really trying to like push. And Giselle was like, wow, you know, and then I guess they asked Candace, like, oh, people think you might have paid the girl off how quickly she retracted her story. And Candace was like, was it quick? And it wasn't. I feel like it was taken by a whole bunch of blogs and stuff before the girl came out and said, okay, I lied. It's not true. There were people trying to piece together the screenshots, which, by the way, if you remember the screenshots, like, which I did see them, they had pictures, they were screenshots of someone else's body, because I guess the person either had tattoos and Chris doesn't have tattoos, or Chris has tattoos and the screenshot didn't have tattoos. So it really, there was nothing about what she submitted that sounded real. And it was stupid. And, it's crazy because then Giselle was trying to be like, oh, and I had nothing to do with it and this and that and blah, 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 woo, woo, woo. And I'm like, but girl, when they asked the girl if you had something to do with it, she said yes. That was her first response. Maybe she did go back and say Giselle has nothing to do with it, woo, woo. I don't know. But let me just tell you, someone like that, that person's not all the way there. That person's not well. So why are you even taking anything that person has to say to heart? And I'm just glad because Chris really shut them down. Like, the way you want to feel about what you want to feel, Giselle, is the way Candace could feel the way she wants to feel. Because feelings matter. I was like, if you don't tell her, ain't nothing but a word. Shut these women down. They ain't got no man behind them to defend them. Candace, you got a man behind you to defend you. You ain't got to talk. Chris got it. Giselle, you ain't have nobody. That's why you and Robin is over here stuttering, trying to say something about Chris, because you ain't got nobody. Nobody wants to defend you. Nobody wants to sit behind you and say, hey, girl, I got it. I love you. Don't worry about it. I got you. No one wants to do that for y'all. So you guys got to sit there and fight Candace's man. Embarrassing. Embarrassing, actually. You got to make it more than just a regular embarrassing. So then Andy, because of that, basically asked, like, why do you guys show up for your wives and Juan doesn't show up for his? Like, why is it that you guys feel like you got to come here and show up? And what do you think about Juan not showing up? And because the men are men, every single one of them is like, He can do whatever he wants. And then here comes Gordon, like, I show up because I care about my wife. He's like, no shade to Juan. I'm not trying to say anything that's going to shade Juan. Sir, you didn't have to say anything to shade Juan. You're there. You've already shaded Juan. He can't show up. He cannot show up for his wife. He does not like her. I've said it. I'll say it again. I'll say it every freaking Robe Chronicles I do. He don't like her. That's why he doesn't show up. Robin knows it. That's why when they do the close up on her eyes, she looks hurt because she knows it too. She knows it. She knows exactly where he stands. She's just fighting a losing battle right now. Um, then Gordon starts talking about him and Mia and why he's there and all this stuff. And he gets ready to like expose something when the episode ends. And again, like I said, I'm just so glad that we are at the end of this journey. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to watch next season, this and that, whoop de whoop. Honestly, I will watch because I'm going to continue doing Robe Chronicles. I've already given up on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I can't give up on another series, but I do have to pick up another one to kind of, keep going with my Robe Chronicles. I don't know which one. Maybe I'm thinking Beverly Hills since it's highest rated, maybe Miami. Maybe New Jersey. I used to watch New Jersey a while ago. I used to watch New Jersey and Beverly Hills a long time ago. But it's been some seasons in between. So I'm trying to decide which one I should pick up. If you guys have any suggestions of which Real Housewives series I should pick up, besides Potomac, since I've given up Salt Lake City, please let me know. And let me know what you guys think about this episode, you thought about the reunion part two. I think it was a lot that happened, but not really. So just please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and let me know what you guys think. I'm really, really interested. I know people have so many thoughts on Twitter. I have thoughts on Twitter, and I think my thoughts on Twitter are way more biased than my thoughts here. At least I think so. I think I'm pretty neutral here. Yeah, I just went in on Giselle today, but I don't be going in on her like that for the most part. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.